Imagine a neighborhood that barely existed 20 years ago. A stretch of Cambridge, Massachusetts that people passed through but never stayed in. Now picture it transformed into something entirely new. Billions of dollars in the making, a new downtown rising from the ground up, residential towers, world-class lab space, retail, restaurants, and the kind of street life that turns a district into a destination. When it's complete, Kendall Square won't be just a neighborhood in Cambridge, Massachusetts. It will be one of the most consequential tech and innovation hubs on the planet. The place where the next generation of biotech, AI, and applied research gets born, funded, brought to market, all within walking distance of MIT's front door. This is not hypothetical. That's the project our guest is building right now. Welcome to Building Places, Tulane Perspective in Real Estate Development. I'm your host, John Rennie, and today I'm joined by Ben Lavery, Tulane alumnus, class of 1993, a member of our program's advisory board. Ben spent a dozen years at Turner Construction, the largest general contractor in the United States, then crossed over to the development side at Boston Properties, one of the country's premier REITs. For the past 15 years, he's been doing something most developers never get to do, building a city within a city from the ground up at MIT with the long game of patience that only an institution and the right person can sustain. Ben came to Tulane from upstate New York because the city grabbed him. Now his daughter goes here too. He's back on campus today to talk about what really takes to build, not just buildings, but careers, communities, and the kind of relationships that make both possible. This is Building Places. Let's get into it. Hi, I am John Rennie. Every great project has a story behind it. On Building Places, we explore the careers, lessons, and experiences of Tulane alumni and industry leaders working in real estate, architecture, planning, and development. Listen wherever you get your podcasts. All right, I am sitting here with Ben Lavery. Ben is a Tulane alumnus of civil engineering, and he serves on our advisory board for our real estate program. Ben, welcome back to Tulane.
It's good to be here.
Tell us a little bit about your career. Like, first of all, why did you choose to come to Tulane in the first place?
That's a great question. Well, I grew up in the Northeast and applied to the usual suspects in terms of engineering schools, RPI, Lehigh, Carnegie Mellon, these types of places. And then I came to New Orleans and just knew it was where I needed to be. Had some friends here, had some good times as a senior, and decided this was the place to take in the experience and not Schenectady, New York.
I grew up in upstate New York, so I can relate.
Yeah.
What is one of your favorite memories as an undergrad here at Tulane?
That was a great question. Also, well, as somebody who has a daughter here now, to sort of live through the events of the week and the day, as I did with her last night, to learn that she took a test and immediately made it out to a parade or made it to this party and then went home and studied. And I think it was really that sort of, you were having fun as much as you were working hard.
Yeah.
And
sometimes work hard and play hard.
Sometimes I tell people I didn't play any video games in college. Didn't watch TV. I was either out enjoying the city or working hard. Yeah.
So I met you actually a long time ago through a common friend and neighbor of mine. Tell me about Eric a little bit. How did you meet Eric?
Eric and I became friends through our sophomore and junior year. We didn't have much connective tissue. We had a mutual friend who studied engineering with me, and I think shared an equal passion for the city's music and getting out and doing different things. And over the time since I've left, I've always maintained that friendship. I speak to him regularly and have had an ongoing relationship with the city.
Yeah.
So he's been sort of my anchor in some of those things.
Well, one of the things that, I found about Tulane alumni is that they are very connected to the university. And, your daughter's here now. So now it's kind of multi-generational. Um, Not everyone has that experience in college. There's something about Tulane I find that, really it's kind of like one of, when you talk to a Tulane alumni, it's like one of their favorite memories in life. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And when you go through the process with any young person in your life and you're trying to shepherd them through the whole college admissions process, which probably couldn't be engineered to be more painful. And then to see her choose to go to Tulane, I think that reflects on how I felt about it. And when I think about how she's doing now, just like she's happy, she's working hard, she's doing well.
Yeah.
So yeah, that I can see how that builds generationally, right? It's a fun thing and it's a fun thing to share.
Let's go back for a moment to Hurricane Katrina, because I know there were some, painful moments, especially for folks that went through Tulane engineering.
Mm-hmm.
And, I want you to kind of reflect a little bit, I guess, on kind of, your experience, coming to Tulane as a student, going into the professional world, getting into real estate, what we're going to talk a little bit about, we're going to talk about here in a moment. But like, as an outsider at the time, I was living in New Orleans, working at the University of New Orleans at the time.
Right.
I remember when Tulane had to make some tough decisions, and I think the engineering decision was one of the toughest decisions that Tulane made, to discontinue, the School of Engineering at the time. Was really difficult, I think, for Scott Cowan at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But yet I felt like overall Tulane did an incredible job in kind of the recovery of an institution after Hurricane Katrina. But I want to hear your perspective on it, right? Because
Yeah.
I know engineering in Tulane is kind of a sore subject for a lot of folks.
Yeah, I would say that it is and it isn't. I think there's a practicality to how you manage through the crisis like that, right? And there were 12 civil engineers in my class in 1993. Usually there were 25, but for whatever reason, we were a lesser year. Look, that's not practical from just the funds available to instruct and all the overhead and all this kind of thing. And that's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
That I think there just has to be a little reality to it. Now, the fact that Katrina and the flood and civil engineering, I mean, but there's a real problem in all of that.
And
I didn't blame the university so much. I didn't feel great about it, obviously. I think that's pretty evident. But to me, it made me think about it's really important to have people with some technical education in places where they influence policies and politics.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have that, then these types of problems happen, and we need them more than ever now. So I didn't take it too personally.
Good.
And I thought that I was here at the time of Katrina, not during the storm, but had things to do afterwards with some parcels. And, it's a struggle, it was a struggle. And I think people really needed to make some hard choices, as you already said. Yeah.
So how did your career go from having a degree in civil engineering into the world of real estate development? So take us through a little bit about like what was the first step, after graduating that led you into the world of real estate development?
Yeah. I immediately went into engineering. The market was terrible in 1993. That really wasn't my chosen path, but there was an opportunity and I took it. And then I went into the world of building and worked for Turner, which is the largest general contractor in the United States. I had the good fortune of spending a dozen years there, learning, working for different clients, right? Sometimes you do things for the state, less sometimes institutes, and then private developers. And, when working with a private developer up in the Cambridge market, I really started thinking hard about it and had some long conversations with the person who was leading the development effort. And he was like, this is available to you. You can do this. He also had come up through like an engineering background, structural engineering background. And so it just became a progression. it was less evident to me that this was a pathway when I first started for whatever reason. And then moving on, I jumped into a REIT, Boston Properties. That was a nice change that happened in parallel with my MBA and getting that in the evenings over at Boston University. Exposed me to some new people, got introduced to somebody who would ultimately become my own boss over there. So in that, I worked still more in the construction capacity, but for a development shop. And then I ultimately went over to the pure development side there about 15 years ago.
So rather than, kind of just jumping into a timeline of, everything you've done in your career, like, what are some of the skills that a developer needs to have, right? I think we were talking a little bit earlier today over coffee about like different pathways that lead folks typically into real estate development, and they come from very different backgrounds. Tell me a little bit about your thoughts on that.
Sure. As we were talking about, the development skill set is really broad, right? And anything from financial to legal to political, right? As you work your way through entitlements that can be challenged, to the design, to the cost side of the design. So it's just so broad. And I think there's a team emphasis there. It's unlikely that people will have all of the skill sets. And then there's talking to people. Like, right, this is, I think, actually one of the things that I credit Tulane for quite a bit is, it is a bit of a social school for the people that want to indulge in that. And being able to talk to your customer or somebody who works at the city, or, having difficult conversations with contractors or anybody in this business, to have those soft skills is invaluable, because there are bright people out there that don't have that. And it really limits what they're able to take on.
Especially nowadays with kind of like the world of social media and, people, not having, young kids maybe not having as much face-to-face time.
In the way that people communicate, right? It's sometimes people don't understand. Don't reply to that email. Call that person, or make sure you find time in your busy life to have lunch with that person and build a relationship and actually get to know them a bit, so that when you have things you need to work through together, it can be a clear pathway.
Do you find that junior employees coming into the workforce nowadays have a harder time understanding the value of going out to lunch and, picking up the phone and calling someone?
I think I'm reluctant to put an age on it, because I don't think it's exclusively age. I think that some people get really busy with their own life and their family and whatever is going on, and that's fine, but you still need to make the time to have those relationships develop and cultivate them. So sometimes it's a younger person. I work with a younger person right now. I don't think she's 30 yet, and she's fantastic at it. And I work with people that are 50 and they're less good.
Well, that's a good point. That's a good point. Ben didn't build his career on one skill. He built it on a sequence of them: engineering, construction, finance, development. Each layer making the next one possible. But the through line in every chapter wasn't technical. It was relational. The phone call to someone he'd known for 20 years. The lunch that didn't produce an immediate deal, but planted a seed that mattered 3 years later. In a business where projects can take decades to deliver, the relationships you tend carefully are often the only thing that moves faster than the work itself. So, in your career, you went from kind of a private builder, right, to a major real estate investment trust that invested and developed properties. And then you transitioned to what most people might not think is being a traditional development role.
That's right.
But yet, at the same token, when you look across the United States, right, universities are some of the largest real estate developers in their community. So tell us, first of all, about why do universities take on the role of real estate development?
That's great. And I would say that MIT is unique. Stanford has a similar program. Other schools like UVA and are trying to do this. So this is a more familiar thing. The concepts out there, it takes decades to execute. So this program at MIT started about 45 years ago. The intention of it is to use the endowment's funds to make returns. Let's not overlook that. So we act very much as a private developer in our behavior and our return expectations, but also to create inventory for partnerships. So by that, I mean, we build buildings that will be occupied by commercial tenants. Could be a lab user, could be an office user. Certainly we have tech focused companies, including, I don't want to get into the names, in the portfolio. And then market housing as well is also a component in this mixed use ground floor development world. So we have commercial, expectations around return, but creating the inventory very much aligns with the MIT mission. And the MIT mission is to create pure research and expedite getting it to market. So what we found is we have like an orchard of companies that hover around the school. They don't take necessarily, sometimes they take 500,000 square feet, but probably more often they have 50,000 square feet, and they have a center for, fill in the blank, or they're doing a research project where they use the wind tunnel, or it's very applied, and the partnerships exist between the research professors, the PIs, and the companies. So they want to be proximate so that they can teach in the morning, go over to their partner program, do something there, go back in the evening, go back to the lab. Those are the types of things that happen in that ecosystem up at Cambridge.
Okay. So I think, of course, in terms of universities go, right? Everybody would love to be an MIT. I'm sure tech companies come out of the woodwork to want to be partners with MIT. What are the sorts of lessons or kind of, skills, more or less, that a university could bring to the table in any situation? Like I said, let's just pick some random state university out there, or Tulane, or Tulane's a great university, of course, but I think that some people may be listening thinking, sure, if I were MIT, it would be really easy to be a real estate developer.
I agree, and there's some truth to that. Like it is, when you're MIT, it's absolutely easy to do it. There's another school up the river that's been trying to do it with less success, I might add. So finding partnerships that are real and appropriate for the business opportunity, you can't expect that the school or the university or institute will support this. Like there is this financial return. So in a way that...
But hold on a second. Why the financial return? Let's say we got a huge multi-billion-dollar endowment. Like, the average person might be thinking, what do you need the financial return for?
Well, if you weren't investing in real estate, you'd invest in something that actually did make money, hopefully. I'll give you a number that, less than 15% of MIT's operating costs are covered by tuition.
Okay.
So, that... And in this world, we're all, dealing with challenges coming from the federal side of things. And so there's very much a focus on investments that actually make sense.
Sure.
And so I think that you can't look at this as something, there will be some like loss leader type investments. There has to be. But it's not something that you can sustain, even if you are a big, very well-established institute or school.
Hi, I'm John Rennie, Director of Real Estate Development at Tulane University and host of Building Places. Every week I sit down with Tulane alumni, faculty, students, and industry leaders who are shaping the future of cities and the built environment. We discuss real estate development, architecture, planning, sustainability, resilience, artificial intelligence, and the projects transforming communities across the country and around the world. Whether you're a student, professional, or simply passionate about great places, Building Places offers insights, inspiration, and connections through the Tulane network. Join us on Building Places.
Yes.
And my suspicion is that universities have a time horizon in terms of their investments that are probably a
Tremendous.
lot longer scale into the future
Yep.
than maybe your average developer.
That's right. And you know, your commitment to the community is different.
Yeah.
So one of the aspects of it that I didn't mention is really just the placemaking component, right? The Kendall Square is a place that for as long as I can remember, people didn't stay. So this is where you do make some investments that aren't profitable, but it's for the benefit of the place. We just opened a food hall that's really doing well. Of course, it's the shiny new object in town at this point. We've opened about 8 restaurants within the same area. And it really just that focus on, and some of them are very straightforward, like a pharmacy and a small format market, just to serve the community, to support the housing. We've built about 800 units of housing in the last 7 years, and we have about 1,400 units coming in the next development project.
New Orleans, has always kind of had a bit of a challenged development role. I mean, it boomed for a number of years in the post-Katrina era, but before Hurricane Katrina, there was a lot of market stagnation, and then now in the post-COVID world, there's a lot of market stagnation. Just out of curiosity, I mean, could you envision? And Tulane is very involved right now in playing a role in the redevelopment of Cherry Hospital and trying to anchor downtown. Could you talk a little bit about like the role that you see, I mean, of course, I know you're not an expert in what, Tulane's necessarily doing in New Orleans or not, but just, I know there was a proposal recently with like real estate development on Claiborne with Ted's Frost Shop that was very controversial, and I think that is basically to redo that whole area, and I don't think that's going forward anymore. What would be a best practice example of how a university like Tulane could play a meaningful role in kind of high impact projects in New Orleans that deliver all the things you're talking about, and at the same time really do help create value for the community in terms of making it a better place?
I think, they're undoubtedly a leader, right? And I don't expect that would change, nor should it change. I think it's hard to expect the university to do everything.
Yeah.
And I don't know a lot about the Claiborne project. I just spoke to Sarah out in front a few minutes about it before I came in. And I'm not sure about the background there. It's not that all things are bad, right? But when you think about the economy in New Orleans, it's so service oriented. There's healthcare, yes, but it's really a service hospitality town. So one thing that comes to mind is, how can we lead on other industry growth, right? Because that's going to drive the outcome, but it's like a macro level thing. It's so the real estate is not going to be necessary unless there's a reason to have it there.
Yeah.
And so how can the school sort of lead companies or create and give people opportunities to be here and recruit talent? We started by talking about how much Tulane students tend to love the city of New Orleans. And that is absolutely true. Well, there's a big reason they don't stay here. And that's because they need to make a reasonable amount of money to stay here. And that's the tension. So the fact that talent wants to be here, they're passionate about being here. How do you solve it from the industry side? Who can you plug in that could actually have a space here to just start and see where it goes? That's how I would see it playing out.
Thinking about, I guess, just kind of curious to get your thoughts, I guess, on how AI is changing both the universities and real estate development as it's really changing our society. I know we haven't talked about this, but I've been doing kind of a lot of work in AI, and in all honesty, I have a hard time really putting my finger on what it's going to do to the real estate development industry. I'm curious if you have any thoughts.
Well, I've been dabbling in it a little bit, like most people, perhaps you more than me. And I'm really blown away with the capabilities of it. I mean, it's surprising.
Yeah.
Recently, we had a tenant that was struggling. We uploaded 3 years of financial statements, the lease, and gave it a narrative on the problem we wanted it to think through. And it gave us an opinion, almost a legal opinion, not to be confused with an actual legal opinion, by the way, on how to work through it in terms of, what the solution and decision-making framework might be around it. And it took, no time at all, of course.
Yeah.
So I think there's some exciting things about it if you're entrepreneurial. And, I think as a developer, you absolutely have to be. Not everybody works at a big REIT, right? I mean, you work in small teams more often than that. Wow, great. I don't have to pay for that, right? I can go ahead and do this level of analysis, and it might not be perfect. You still got to judge it and scrutinize it. But it can make you quicker and do some preliminary assessments like right away. Mm-hmm. So I think it's exciting to think about how to apply it. The impacts are, I think everyone's scratching their head in terms of what the impacts are going to be.
Do you see from your vantage point at the moment that it will reduce your need to hire people into your firm?
I would say yes.
Yeah.
I would say yes.
Yeah.
I would say yes. We're not a big team though.
Yeah.
I mean, we have big projects, small teams. Yeah.
3 years of financial statements, one complex lease, one problem that needed a framework. Ben fed it all into an AI tool and got something back that looked a lot like a legal opinion in no time at all. He was quick to note that it wasn't a substitute for judgment or for an attorney. But that's exactly the point. The developers who will use AI most efficiently aren't the ones replacing their thinking. They're the ones who already know what questions to ask. So, thinking just, I guess, generally, if you were to kind of like talk to a student who is, either in college or getting ready to graduate and go out into the work world, right? Now that you've kind of had some decades of experience under your belt, like what advice would you give to somebody who's starting their career in the world of real estate?
Yeah, well, as we already talked about a little bit, I mean, people go ahead and establish their skill sets down all sorts of technical avenues, right? It could be any of the disciplines that we mentioned. Mm-hmm. And one thing that you can't substitute are the relationships and those people skills.
Yeah.
I think that's paramount to everything. Yeah. And, having the relationship to call somebody that you've known for 20 years when there's a problem or there's a challenge, and knowing that you're supporting each other and that you're getting it up front. Mm-hmm. To me, all this real estate is super local. Mm-hmm. We manage big projects. I still know 20 people probably at the city of Cambridge DPW.
Yeah.
So don't think that their decisions aren't important, because they are.
Yeah. So
really just that network, and that's how you're able to move things forward so many times. Mm-hmm. And get through things in a smooth way. And it could be the same thing with capital markets. It could be the same thing with the tenant relationship you might have, or a broker. I just think the relationships can't be, assumed by AI, and build those, and think that the initial relationships you make when you're starting out your career, those carry forward, and you're going to be talking to them in the future if they're a star.
What do you see as kind of the biggest headwinds facing the industry right now?
Well, Boston's very overbuilt on lab, and that's going to be a big issue, in part because of the NIH funding issues that I mentioned, and things like that. We're also a union town. Wages are going up. There's a rent control ballot initiative in the fall in Massachusetts. That's going to be incredibly difficult if that goes forward. It's really the costs. I think the costs, the demand's there for something like housing, but the cost doesn't work, and I don't think that that's going to move forward for the foreseeable future. Even on the office and lab type of product, it's going to be a real challenge. we benefit in that we have A+ locations,
Mm-hmm.
but for B locations or even A- locations, the rents might be half what they are in the premium location.
So, two questions. One is, where do you see like the best opportunities right now in real estate, right? Like, is it going building data centers? Is it going, some other thing? And I've had students come to me and say, listen, like, I have a job offer where I can go build a data center, which is a really good opportunity, but I really kind of want to build, a walkable transit development, right? And so, my question for you is, and I think there's a lot of demand, obviously, in both areas, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you're a young professional and you're looking at, trying to take a job that is offered to you that's well paid and maybe not exactly what you want to do,
Mm-hmm.
versus maybe trying to hold out for this idealistic job of, creating this beautiful, sustainable development. What's your advice for that?
I mean, I love the latter, but the reality is you got to start,
Yeah.
and you got to take an opportunity and do your best and build skill sets. You don't know where it's going to go, right? You're sitting here today and you're thinking, all right, I don't want to do X and Y and Z, but the reality is you're still going to learn some of these skill sets.
Yeah.
You're going to see it. And I think that's going to provide you with a lot of value going forward. I would also think a lot about the companies you go to work for, because high quality companies will create more opportunity for you.
Yeah.
And
Does that mean big?
it can.
I mean, how do you decipher if you're 25 years old and you're trying to decipher what's a good company or not? How do you make that decision?
I guess I chose on the size a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Boston Properties wasn't a big group of people that did the actual development and so on, but really competent people,
Yeah.
that had really strong resumes and really experience-driven resumes.
Mm-hmm.
That's an opportunity to learn.
Where do you go to network? Are you a member of any professional
ULI,
associations? Yeah.
and then Boston NAIOP is a decent sized group.
Mm-hmm.
You'd be surprised how much you can take away from just maintaining those friendships
Yeah.
in small groups. We have a number of informal groups that get together, and people that used to work at Boston Properties. There's an XBXP group because a lot of people at the top never left, so people went out to go find their other opportunities. So those, again, that comes back to the relationships. I think that's something that's hard to replace.
Yeah.
And can be enjoyed too. It's not all work.
And I mean, do you find that relationships that, like, you obviously work with people that graduated from other programs, when evaluating like the relationships you have with your now, and you went to Tulane and you went to Boston University. I mean, do you see any differences? I mean, I guess what I'm trying to ask is from my vantage point, like, I've been incredibly impressed with how the Tulane alumni network with each other. And even if they've never met each other, it's like once they find out that they both went to Tulane, it's like an instant connection.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
I would totally agree with that.
Yeah.
And it perseveres, right? My father was the kind of guy who used to say, oh, this is where this person went to school and this is what they studied. And I wasn't sure what to make of that over the years. But I do think there's some truth with where people go to school drives their personality in some ways.
Yeah.
Or how they see things.
Yeah.
Or can.
Yeah.
To be more correct. So, I do think that Tulane and the experience, the positive experience, the sort of loyalty, you're starting in a very positive place when those things come about. Again, working with people that have different pathways to the team, professionally, educationally, that's important. You gotta have some diversity of thought.
Yeah.
And I worked for a short time at a firm that had predominantly engineers from one northern school. And you could tell, even as a young person being there, I'm like, well, they all are approaching things the same way.
Yeah.
And real estate's challenging. You need to think about it as many ways as you can conceive.
Yeah.
To be successful, especially when you're trying to mitigate things like risk or alternative paths to get through an obstacle. Yeah, you want people tugging on different ideas and with different lenses. So I very much value the diversity of thought.
You've been incredibly generous with your time and serving on our real estate advisory board for our program. Tell me a little bit about why you chose to donate your time in doing that, and how you think, because my goal as a program director is to connect, students with mentors and alumni. And so we just kind of at the beginning of this kind of journey, but I'm curious to get your thoughts on that.
Well, coming to, when you leave if you stay in New Orleans, as we had already covered, fantastic, right? That helps. If you go off to the Pacific Northwest or even the Northeast, the numbers of alum, it changes, right? Your relationship with the school may change, although I think today it's easier to keep it in lockstep. I'll tell you a little quick story. About 10 years ago, my dad handed me an envelope that had a bunch of letters in it. And these were all letters from firms that I had applied to in the early 90s. And they were either weren't hiring anybody or they weren't accepting my resume. And at that time, we literally were taking magazines and looking for the firms and trying to do research. I remember sitting in the library here doing that and trying to write letters. Anything you can do to support the Institute directly or indirectly, to bring people in and give them an introduction and give them a shot, I think it's fantastic. And it's not much to do, and it's fun.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And you've, as a part of that, you're meeting other alumni, right, who are also working in the real estate industry nationally. Yeah. Is that been beneficial at all?
I love it.
Yeah.
I love hearing about what's going on in other markets.
Yeah.
It's one of the limitations of my current role, but I love it. I love just hearing, hey, this is what we're building down in Miami, or this is what's happening in New York or elsewhere, or different products. I'd go so far as to say, if you don't have a curiosity around that, then maybe you should think about doing something else for a living, because that's the fabric of it, right? How is this working in this market, and why, and how does that work in my world, and what's coming next? I love those types of daydreams.
All right, last question. This is kind of out of left field. A lot of podcasters will say, tell me a good book to read. I'm not going to ask you a book. Tell me a good Hollywood movie that's based on real estate, that when you watch it, you say, hey, I want to be that guy.
Oh my gosh. That's a loaded question. I have no freaking idea, John.
No?
No idea. No idea.
No, come on. Not any mafia movies?
No. I've, as I said to you earlier today, I've lived with a few people in the communities and watched how they do their job. No big movies.
Casino? Come on.
Casino. Yeah, that's it. That's my life. No one wants to know, but that's what's happening in Kendall. It's Casino.
Well, anyway,
this was fun.
You're going to come and speak to my class. You're one of my first guests on the podcast, and I know you're going to be a tremendous partner for our program for many years to come. So, Ben, thank you so much.
Looking forward to it. Thanks for including me.
Yeah, thank you. Right. Looking to advance your career in real estate development? Tulane's hybrid Master of Sustainable Real Estate Development combines live online evening classes taught by industry leaders with immersive field experiences, allowing you to earn a degree while continuing to work. Learn more at Tulane. Ben Lavery has seen this industry from every angle. Contractor, REIT, university developer, and the through line is always the same. The technical skills get you in the room. The relationships keep you there and propel you. He didn't land at MIT because he had the right degree. He got there because he kept showing up for work, for the people, for the cities he genuinely believed in. If you're a Tulane alum working in real estate, construction, engineering, or urban development, This program's advisory board is growing, and so is our network. Reach out. Ben's story is proof that connections you make here carry forward in ways you can't always predict. New episodes of Building Places will keep bringing you the people shaping the built environment. Developers, investors, planners, alumni, and the occasional student who reminds us of why all of this matters. Subscribe wherever you listen. Share this with someone starting their career who needs to hear that the path doesn't have to be straight, just has to keep moving forward, and those relationships count. I'm John Rennie. Until the next time, keep building.